Battlefield 2042 is making some big changes to the game again, and this is stuff that I didn't know about when I posted my video yesterday, and it's all come from a huge blog they dropped, and there's some significant improvements and adjustments to some of the core gameplay mechanics in here. One of these changes will be quite controversial, I can say that. So we're going to be taking a look at that today. I've got some gameplay from the capture event in the background here. So we played the new map this week. I've already done a video where I summarized all the new stuff, but it was quite cut up. So this will be more of a long form video where there's more uncut gameplay so you can get a feel of what the map is actually like. So things that I didn't mention about the new map yesterday, which I should have done. So the new map is 64 players only in All Out Warfare. You know, on the main menu, you queue up for Conquest, Exodus, Conquest 64, whatever the playlist is there. There's going to be a Breakthrough playlist for this too, because I thought it was actually all right on Breakthrough, and I don't usually like that game mode. But with that said, this map will only be available for 64 players from the main menu. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, obviously 128 was a bit of an experiment, and the map design didn't really lend itself that well to that number of players. Probably caused some technical problems as well. So DICE have made a conscious choice here to release this map and just limit it to 64 players. So it's going to be more of a classic Battlefield experience in that regard. But if you want to play it with 128 players, which I'm sure some people do, you can do that on Portal. So I'm sure that when this releases on the 7th, next Wednesday, there's going to be a ton of people running 128 players on this map. And I think it's just about big enough to make it kind of fun still, but it's going to be quite chaotic, especially at the middle flags where you've got the two warehouses, but you never know. So 64 players by default. The second big thing that I should have said about the map, it doesn't have any transport helicopters on. So transport helicopters, I think, have been nerfed, and there's another nerf coming up for them in the future. So that's the Condor and the Hind. And you guys know, if you play 2042 regularly, if you come up against a squad who is proficient with these vehicles, they've got a couple people on the guns, a couple people repairing, they've got a competent pilot, they just dominate and they're almost impossible to kill. But this map will not have any. And I know that for a lot of people, that's going to be great because you're not going to be constantly harassed by the transport helicopters anymore. It has the little bird on, Nightbird, but because you've got the stationary AA there, you've got the Wildcat, I think they're not going to be dominating that much. So yeah, it is a proper combined arms feeling on this map with a big focus on infantry, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this map. It's going to be good. So big change revealed in the blog that was just posted, and this I think is going to have a significant impact on how the game feels, because it's quite a big change to the gunplay. And I'm going to read what they've said here. So the title of this is Accuracy and Dispersion Changes. Since launch, our level design team has been reworking our maps to react to feedback on cover opportunities and traversal improvements. These changes have also resulted in alterations to combat distances, and our weapons were tuned for these previous distances and combat scenarios in mind. Over time, this has resulted in feedback from you about several weapons being too accurate at long ranges without penalty. With Season 5, we aim to address this gap with balancing the accuracy and dispersion of several categories of weapons. Assault rifles from All Out Warfare and their Vault weapon counterparts will be the first to receive this treatment. You will notice that the maximum dispersion has been increased by an average of 15 to 20%. And the weapons will now reach that maximum dispersion level when they reach half of the magazine while on full auto and full spray mode. This should encourage everyone to do smaller bursts instead of prolonged fire towards a moving target, and in consideration with the map rework, should increase survivability at longer ranges to encourage further up close and personal combat. We will be assessing your feedback to this change over time and continue to make necessary changes in future updates. And the key word there was dispersion, and I think you can interpret this in a couple of ways, but I think what DICE are referring to here is spread. So they're adding a bit more spread to the weapons after you've got through half of the magazine if you just full auto. And I think the reason for this is that there are several guns in the game, especially if you play on mouse, where they're just laser beams at any range because the recoil is very easy to control. It's just going vertical, not much horizontal bounce on it. So you can laser people with most of the assault rifles, RM68, the SCAR, the M5, prime examples right there. Some people love that because it's easy. Some people dislike it because it means that there's less of a skill gap in the game, and it doesn't take much practice to get good with the fully automatic weapons. Now, spread's a very hot topic though in competitive shooters. It can be a bit controversial. Others would prefer if they just added more recoil. I think the point of this is that after this change, you're going to have to burst the guns a lot more, and it might start to feel a bit more like BF3 and BF4 did. Whether you like that or not, That's up to you. It might take a bit of relearning to get used to things if you main assault rifles, but we're going to have to see how this plays out. If this was in the build of the game that I played yesterday, I wouldn't have experienced it because the only assault rifle that I used was the G36, and that's the new one. So any feelings that I had were brand new for that, and I didn't have anything to compare it to. I did use an SMG, which was the MP9, but DICE said that they're starting with the assault rifle, so I don't think the MP9 was any different. The other guns that I used were the Deagle, that's semi-automatic, and the new bolt-action rifle. So the only full auto rifle I tried was the G36. It's going to be really interesting. I don't know how this will affect controller players either, because I know that controller players have less recoil to start with anyway on all of the guns in the game. Maybe they've added some more now. Maybe they've reduced the spread penalty if you're using controller. I don't know. There wasn't any notes about that in the blog. So we'll have to keep a close eye on this one. But if the game feels a bit different when you're using an assault rifle, this will probably be why. And the other massive change, which you'll definitely notice, is to the camera sprint movement and the ADS field of view. So here's what DICE have said about this. And this is big because this is what you're going to be doing a lot of in the game, unless you're just a vehicle player who only plays vehicles, but most people are going to be running around sprinting all the time in first person as an infantry. Here's what DICE said: we've made adjustments to the camera movement when sprinting in BF 2042. This change is meant to add physicality to sprinting by introducing more immersive camera movement depending upon the type of weapon and sprint type that you may be using at the time. You will notice a different amount when using an assault rifle compared to an RPG, for example. We hope you enjoy this new sense of weight and body motion through the camera. For accessibility, you may turn off the new motion in the accessibility options. On top of that, there are also some golden rules to camera motion in FPS games that ensure your understanding of where you are in space, aligned with what the camera tells you. And we have taken the opportunity to improve that further by focusing on rotations rather than translations in space. So the game's inherently going to feel different, especially when you're sprinting around based on what weapon you have. And then there's this related to ADS field of view, as I mentioned. Aim down sight field of view is now active for all players. Normally a scope will adjust your field of view. With this option set to on, the field of view will instead be taken from the field of view you chose in general in your display settings. Some weapons will not be affected if they have specifically been designed to have a certain field of view that should not be changed. Why is this important? The amount of input it takes for your aim to move across screen space changes when field of view changes. Uniform soldier aiming calculates your aim rate to take the same amount of pixel distance on screen for a given physical movement of the mouse. Don't know why they didn't mention controller there, because I think this will affect controller players too. In 4.2 we set uniform soldier aiming to on by default. Setting ADS field of view to on ensures the consistency achieved by uniform soldier aiming remains the same across various scopes, since your field of view will not change when zooming. Like uniform soldier aiming, this will help to build muscle memory, which is essential to aiming in first-person shooters. So again, more changes here to how the game looks and feels, especially when aiming and shooting your gun. Lots of fancy technical talk there, but to summarize, the way I would put this is after this update, after this patch, the gunplay and the movement might feel like it has a bit more personality. Put it that way to keep it simple. The rest of the blog is huge. There's a ton of fixes and changes and information in here. It's nice to get this level of transparency from DICE, but there's a couple things that I thought you'd want to know, like the important things. I've already talked about how they're restructuring the vehicle loadouts in a previous video, so we're not going to go into that. Dozer's getting some changes, bit of a buff for Dozer, bit of a nerf for Irish's trophy system. Squad management, we talked about that before. The damage numbers, you may have noticed those on the screen. I actually turned those on for this capture session, so you can customize where those damage numbers are when you're hitting someone in your crosshair. You can now put breakthrough in your portal server. That's a pretty big deal. I think a lot of people are going to use that. They nerfed the Ranger against infantry projectiles, so Rangers are going to take more damage from typical guns now, I think. And the other main one, I think, was Sundance. So they've completely removed the anti-armor grenade from Sundance. That's gone now. So definitely a bit of a nerf there. I think that is about it. As I mentioned, there's just way too much in this blog to go through. But that's the important stuff. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. It's looking pretty good. I just hope they commit to content and actually give us some more maps and guns and stuff. Right. With that said, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts below. Drop me a like, help support me. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.